People need to touch grass.
1000xResist's is the greatest story ever told within the confines of a video game. It is not the greatest story ever told, though I think it's close. It's not a great video game story, doesn't really take advantage of the medium in a way a lot of great video game stories do. Something strand type game. And it's certainly not the best video game ever. It barely even is one. There are two instances of what can charitably be described as gameplay. A puzzle that's unfailable even if it wasn't extremely easy, and only up. To call it a video game is like blacking in and out during a gallery tour and calling it a film. If you're playing video games to hit sick clips on Nazis or preteens or both simultaneously, I don't think you'll like 1000xResist. In presentation, it is comparable to a movie that you occasionally have to unpause yourself, and in writing, it's closer to a book. To such a degree that it brings to mind something a friend told me about poetry. 80% of it is worthless, 20% of it is life-changing, and the specific ones that are to each individual person is completely random. That's what this game is like, 1,000 poems. There's a colossal amount of ideas at play here, all at once, tying into and pulling on each other. Religion, revolution, immigration, the cycle of abuse, forgiveness, oppression, 100 more, and the individual roles in all of it. This video is going to be about the ending, and the game is so dense in not just plot, but everything beneath it that I couldn't bring you up to speed if I wanted to. For that same reason, I don't think this video will ruin the game for you, but if you're at all willing to play a game that is almost entirely navigating a fuck-ass hub world with a napkin map, talking to characters who weren't even bothered to be given names, sitting your clone ass down and listening, I could not recommend it more. It's $20 on Steam, pretty often dropping down to $15 on sale. If that's out of range, you can get it for as low as a damn $1.50 on G2A or similar sites. Last chance, we're going spoiler mode from here on out. And here's the biggest one. At the end of 1000xResist's, you are given the chance by Secretary to decide how the world will continue. Who will stay and who will go with Secretary, aka die. You like someone? Bang, light on. You don't like them? Bang, light off. Most of your choices at this point only affect these little memorials you tour around and see at the end of the game. But depending on who you choose to join you in the new world, you are given one of the two true endings. And if certain choices are not made, you get routed into one of the 5 secret/bad endings. No credits, no walk around the facility, nothing. Multiple endings is a difficult thing to write around in a story, especially one as plainly big as this. There's two general schools of it, having a player's choices throughout the game build upon each other into diverging scenarios, or just having the player make all their choices right at the end of the game to determine their ending all at once. I think it's pretty universally agreed that games that let the player's choices matter before the ending are the better approach, but it's supremely difficult not only to write a game like that, but to produce one as well. At its most basic, if some characters are only present in a scene sometimes, not only does it have to be written to function with and without that character, but the scene has to be animated and voiced differently as well, meaning you're now having to create 2 scenes even though the player will only ever see one. This is why stories written like this often go for the telltale classic of picking either X or Y character, and upon your choosing, they both sort of are forced to become the exact same character to take each other's place in any subsequent scene that they're in. Choosing to write a story in the way of spontaneously throwing the player all their choices at the end, though, is like not great as well. The player ends up feeling like any and all agency they've had throughout the entire game was never really there. They've had no impact on the experience, but the experience they've had up until this point has been fully uncompromisingly intended as the central experience. So there's that bonus that probably isn't as conscious in the player's head, but still largely contributes to the story's quality. You'd think you would always choose the former approach of large branching stories, but in practice, it's a trade-off both in the experience of the player and in the actual creation of that story for the developers. A straight shot is implicitly less satisfying, but way easier, while a brancher, which is apparently what I'm calling it, requires more resources for an arguably worse result. At least in the form of traditional video game storytelling, which is not always the case. Please play Outer Wilds, please play Outer Wilds, please play. 1000xResist's takes the former approach of a straight shot. You have no control over the story until it's about to end. And that might seem like it'd be disappointing, but it works so well here. Before you even make the choice, which is apparently what I'm calling it, you're treated to the knowledge that every choice you thought you might have been exerting was made within the communion with Secretary. And you're only given that knowledge at the point where it seems like all the pieces are in place and there's no more for you to do other than let the ending run its course. The game's storyline is so suffocating in your lack of agency at all times in both its design and plot that it ends up being this huge moment when you're finally able to make your own choices for these characters. You go from being asphyxiated by your lack of ability to intervene right into being smothered by the weight of the literal entire world. It's the perfect ending for a game like this, one that's built on its layered plotline and okay, elephant in the room. The game kind of looks like shit. Despite coming out barely over a year ago, it's visually dated, especially in the light, and it's just very still at all times. Clearly the budget is not all there, and that's why it works so well here. It takes what's generally seen as a weakness in video game storytelling, this lack of agency before the central climax, and turns it into this incredibly cathartic moment. In concept, it's outstanding to turn what's otherwise a limitation of the medium into a moment so freeing that it feels a little suffocating, like you've forgotten how to make conscious choices except within the proxy of Blue Girl. In execution, though? Nah, I'm just kidding. This is one of those surprise mean videos. It's nearly perfect. Like I said earlier, in addition to the two true endings, there's several secret/bad endings that you can receive if you fail to fulfill certain conditions. If you fail to save a few crucial options, you lose. Or if you allow the bad ending options to remain, you also lose. If that doesn't make sense, you have to vote out the imposter or you lose. If you're dumber than that, it's 2 turns post-demonic pact with no reversal and you have to offload it before the end of your turn. If you still don't get it, don't worry. Here's a really cool YouTube short I found.
Mind is Muscle, Part 9. Creative writing sets the strong mind, create the strong body. Go to your car, turn the radio, either rock or rap. Anything between is for fucking girls. Be a man, find a verse you like. Keep the melody, but rewrite it to instead be about a man sucking a big fat cock.
Finally, someone's gonna come on my face when Swallow is the game to play and call me the ace. No, I couldn't be queer. Now you shouldn't be there, cause I suck at the top, but I go fuck at the bottom. Intersexual. Bet you didn't think that I could suck you too. Pan-orgasmic splooge. Look, my ass is so malleable. Friction tubes fit in my butt in my mouth hole too. Dicks with dicks, man, you think I'm all this I can do.
The inclusion of these bad endings will be divisive. I've gone back and forth on it a few times. They're not like funny game over screens or haha you destroyed the fabric of space-time. Please play Outer Wilds, please play Outer Wilds, please play. The game essentially asks you, the player, given the entire story up until this point, to make the final moral judgment. What should stay, what should go? It's the point where you can now enact your interpretation. Except in game, there are wrong answers, and if you pick them, you get shown a cutscene telling you, no, actually, you interpreted it wrong, which means you're dumb. And gay. It pretty inarguably leans toward pretentious to punish the player for having a divergent interpretation, but in the execution of it, I think it works. The quote punishment of these secret endings is minimal. You watch a little cutscene before getting sent right back to try again, and they aren't arbitrary in their application. Each one in some way reflects the game's core themes and ideas, or just basic common sense like these first two do. If Steam achievement numbers are to be believed, basically everyone chose to keep the sisters for, I imagine, numerous reasons. Secretary tells you that keeping the sisters is required to escape the eventual failure of the facility in the ocean. If you get rid of the sisters, your ending's overridden to the eventual death of everyone, dying as the vessel slowly deteriorates underwater, the truth having died with the sisters. An appeal to ignorance as bliss. Same as, but a little different than if you choose to turn every light off, maybe an even dumber our ending. These stakes are made obvious to you by Secretary as you're making the decision, with you having to confirm again that you are in fact an asshole. Nearly everyone chose to save the sisters, if not because they've been centrally important to the entire game, saving our asses at least once, then because it feels like such a poorly justified idea to let the last bastion of humanity rot under the ocean because of some sort of fear about what remains on the surface. Look at the name of the fucking game if you need any proof that it largely doesn't want you to roll over and die. If that's not enough, the idea of the cycle of violence and oppression not being worth fighting against is refuted at critical points in the game's story, like every character's relationship to authority, or the scene that I'm not showing you, because if I did, you would laugh at how fucking stupid it looks while having also nearly made me cry. If you got either of these two endings, it's because you failed personally. You fell to apathy and cynicism at best, nihilism at worst. This ending works because the stakes are made clear, and it's an irrefutably bad choice by any and all reasonable measures within the ideas presented to you in-game, as well as out of it. This is a general format for the rest of 1000xResist's secret endings, a reading and comprehension test, a poking and prodding, did you get it? Which is probably annoying to idiots who didn't get it. I think having them sit through some dialogue again is getting off pretty easy, considering you spent $15 and as many hours just to sit around and not comprehend what you're looking at. But sure, it's a video game, so brainlet's gotta beat it. If your head is hard enough, they'll eventually brute force the correct answer. Like, come on, guys, it's pretty cut and dry. It's not like you can walk away having experienced something personally meaningful to you only. Shut the fuck up, Scantron, put the fill in the blank. You know what? I think this story depicting the tribulations of being an immigrant without connection to your current or former culture, the evils of centralized anonymous authority, and the echoing impact of generational trauma might be fucking woke.
Fucking pronoun!
Okay, I'm overblowing it, but you kind of see how it's at least a little pretentious. You kind of get a little bit of a lecture about how your personal interpretation is wrong and to get the right answer next time. I get it if this pretentiousness might make the experience lesser for you, but I don't hate it implicitly. I like that the game is unwavering on some of its ideals, but allows the player to make a majority of the choices available without stepping in to tell you why you're wrong. And I think that's shown most in the Xiao ending especially. Should you choose to not save the Xiaos, essentially turned into a slave race by principle, more victims to the Iris's abuse than anyone, it's shown that life does in fact go on outside the facility. But you're given a memorial to the 4 Xiaos you met in-game, and close on blue, tearfully repeating,
"No one is beyond forgiveness. No one is beyond forgiveness. No one is beyond forgiveness."
It's a uniquely powerful ending, especially being the only one that doesn't end in larger death. Life goes on without them, but for the sake of the Irises, the Xiaos must survive. The Irises can't forgive themselves. The only way they can ever be free of this burden is for the Xiaos to choose to relieve them of it. To cut them out is not only wrong from the perspective of the Xiaos, being wiped away forever for having the audacity to express displeasure with their oppression, but it's also destructive to the existence of the Irises who live on. To cut Xiao out is to deny the Irises their only path to forgiveness. Same as Iris to her mom, as Iris's mom to her mom, as well as youngest to Iris, Fixer to Watcher, the clones to Principal, and probably more that went over my head. It's supremely cutting on its own, adds yet another level of depth to every dysfunctional relationship in the game. It's so fucking good. This game is so fucking good. Something I've not mentioned is what determines your true ending, if you've managed to avoid all of the bad ones. Should you avoid these 5 endings, 2 of which I've not mentioned yet, your ending is determined by whether or not you choose to save Principal. Inarguably a perpetrator in all of this, but similarly a victim as well. If you choose to save Principal, you get the red ending, where you're given the opportunity to walk around the hub world and see where the rest of your choices led, while Principal, still alive and markedly less crazy, acts as the sole caretaker of the facility, and also looks rad as hell. Look at that. She's fucking, she looked like the damn Predator, bro. That's sick. If you don't save Principal, you get the blue ending, almost entirely the same, except for blue guiding you around instead. You can choose to forgive Principal or to not, and it only has minor influence on your ending. It plays well off of the Xiao ending in that way, where not allowing the Xiaos to live means the Irises will never be able to find forgiveness. Similarly, you are now given the opportunity to decide whether or not you forgive Principal, to allow her to retry and walk the path without the pressure of Iris bearing down on her. Give her a chance to do for those left what she should have been doing all along. Like the Xiaos to the Irises, it's a choice you get to make and not be made for you, to forgive your oppressor, with no judgment if you choose not to, even though the game kind of leans towards forgiving principle. I think it's such a good implementation of the game's wider ideas that it almost comes into conflict with one of the game's other bad/secret endings, the Red Guard. I'm not a chud, okay? In my ending, I got rid of Mauve and the Reds, and I even got rid of Nowhere, despite the fact that I can fix her. If you choose to save the Red Guard, the provisional government's anonymous police force, you will get treated to an ending of the girly set to die by firing squad. There's lots of reasons why the Red Guard, representative of old institutions of power, would do this. After all, we blew up the fucking sky, and the justification for keeping them is no deeper than, they're really strong though, and what if we need to kill more innocent people? But I don't really find it compelling on any deeper level. I kind of don't like that allowing the Red Guard to survive would lead to an implicit execution of our main cast. The Red Guard act nearly entirely as an arm of Mauve, and aren't really developed as being any sort of independently acting entity. You're just told that they are by Secretary as you're making the choice. Sure, they're assholes, and more a system than individuals, but they would be looped in on Secretary's big giant communion like everyone else, so I don't see why it's an impossibility for any of them to turn in some way, especially in the presence of Principal and Nowhere, who we've established in the true ending as being able to fix themselves up following the events of the story. Unlike the Xiao ending, which reinforces the themes of the rest of the game, this one just feels like an implicit fail state. It doesn't show how central authority with an arbitrarily enforced underclass leads to jack and shit for everyone, it just says that it does. I think this section only falls short of excellence because of the lacking budget. Something really compelling could have been made here, and instead we only get treated to the outcome. It's not a big deal, but it is emblematic of my problem with the final ending, which I actually do kind of hate. Surprise, this is a mean video. If you're a fan of Mushoku Tensei, you might assume that's the only reason I made it. The final ending is whether or not you choose to save Mauve. Mauve is a resident anarchist, having seen firsthand the failures of a society governed by principle under the All-Mother, and worse than that, finding that it has been largely preserved under the provisional government. She's a character entirely without principle, not that one, only obsessed with removing any and all remnants of the old world. As such, Mauve overrides every ending. If you leave Mauve alive, Secretary asks you to double confirm your decision, saying that he thinks Mauve is too dangerous and radicalized. If you tell Secretary that yes, I really do want Mauve, you're treated to this cutscene. That's it. It doesn't elaborate on any of the game's wider ideas, provides no insight in Mauve, the Red Guard, or any other character. You just get told, anarchy bad. And I agree, anarchy bad. It's a cynical ideology comparable in efficiency to your most boring centrists, endlessly repeating, both sides are bad actually, only louder and angrier and more on Reddit. The societal equivalent of, did you try unplugging it and waiting for it to plug itself back in? I think Mauve isn't developed enough as a character to justify this ending. She's one of the only aspects of 1000x Hunter that I have any real criticism of. I like her inclusion first as the observant shell, not seeming to matter more than any other. She's revealed later to have been a bit of a pawn for Nowhere. Then she acts as Watcher's prison guard, only after she walks up to Blue in the bar to say, hey, been a while, I'm radicalized by the way, like a median Gen Z man. I think she would work better if she was introduced in the order of escalating lunacy, or if you want a more empathetic angle, show us she's crazy and then work backwards as to why. As it is now, she's neither relevant nor crazy enough to be unforgivable. She's markedly less insane than Principal, which as the game established was able to reintegrate after the big communion in the absence of Mauve and the Guard. I understand maybe the Red Guard ending a little more. Maybe the presence of these old structures of power wouldn't allow Principal to recover and keep her in this state of mind, desperate to prove herself to the All-Mother, but Mauve is just one person. She's representative of a larger, maybe smaller, dumber idea of accelerationism and anarchy, but I don't see any reason for her to be implicitly cast aside as an uncompromising lunatic if Principal is a character perfectly within the capabilities of absolution. I don't understand how the game is so bent on forgiveness but punishes you for forgiving on this one instance. Secretary does give you an in-game warning to double confirm that you want to leave Mauve alive, same as every other bad ending, but they also gives you a warning about Principal, even if you've made all the right choices. I don't think you're unreasonable for choosing to allow a path of forgiveness for Mauve in the face of Secretary's Grand Communion, the same way I don't think it's stupid to extend this offering to Principal. No one is beyond forgiveness, so why is Mauve? So yeah, that's what this whole bitch is about. I think one character is undercharacterized in proportion to the amount of scorn the game has for her, and one of the 5 endings feels slightly thematically at odds with the rest of the story. In a lesser game, this criticism might actually be something, but in 1000xResist, it's nothing. This game is so rich and poignant and emotional that even if the ending was complete shit, which it isn't, I would recommend it just as much as I am right now. It barely even tries to marry gameplay with storytelling, but as a story in a video game, it is without question my favorite. Please support it. Please support games like it. Please allow art like this to continue to exist. And more than any of that, please play it. Except you, Andrew.
Funny. Such funny friends for funny times.